They found his decomposing body in an empty lot, naked, face beyond recognition, a wooden object thrust into him. Ebeng Mayor was just trying to build a better life, a proud LGBTQ member gaining supporting friends on TikTok, working any honest job he could find to help his mother escape poverty. The night he disappeared, he just wanted comfort from a friend. He was upset about girlfriend problems and went drinking with his childhood friend, Dugong. But Dugong betrayed him, led him straight to two men waiting in the darkness. They knocked him unconscious, violated him, and made Dugong smash his face with a rock. When he still showed signs of life, they kept beating him until he stopped breathing. His own childhood friend helped murder him. The same boy who grew up playing with him. The same friend he trusted enough to share his problems with that final night. All three men claimed they weren't themselves because of drugs, as if that explains beating someone you've known since childhood until their face is unrecognizable. This shocking hate crime changed Philippine laws forever and made everyone question why these things still happen today. This is the terrifying case of Ebeng Mayor. On May 20th, 2021, around 2:30 in the afternoon, a herdsman tending to his water buffalo caught a whiff of something putrid in the tall grass. Following the horrific smell to its source, Ray de la Cruz discovered what remained of a human being dumped like garbage in an empty lot at Sitio Bacal, Barangay Bagong, Silangang, Quezon City. Police Corporal Jerome Mendez was among the first responders. What he witnessed would haunt him forever. The body lay naked, decomposing, face beyond recognition, black with decay. A wooden branch had been violently forced into the victim's genitals. No clothing, no identification, no dignity in this death. Mendez would later recall,
Mabaho na siya, nasa stage of decomposition na nga eh. Kasi may mga uod, tapos dahil siguro sa yung mukha hindi na makilala eh.
Medical examiners estimated the victim had been dead for 2 or 3 days. The cause of death? Blunt traumatic injuries to the head and penetrating trauma to the vulva. Someone had beaten this person's face so severely that their skull fractured. They then had shoved a 10-centimeter wooden branch into their most intimate parts. It wasn't just murder, it was hatred made physical. With no identification and a face destroyed beyond recognition, investigators had only one clue to the victim's identity: a tattoo on the arm that read, Isheng. Miles away in Barangay Ampid, San Mateo, Rizal, a mother named Cherry Tria was sick with worry. Her child, Norby Tria, known to friends as Ebeng Mayor, had been missing for 3 days. When Cherry heard about an unidentified body with an Isheng tattoo, her world collapsed. She couldn't even identify her own child's face. Only the tattoo confirmed what a mother's heart already feared. Ebeng Mayor was born Norby Tria, a child of simple circumstances but extraordinary spirit. From early childhood, Ebeng showed a natural warmth that drew people close. Cherry simply said, "Such a kind child, so cheerful, everyone here loved him." Unlike many parents who reject their LGBTQ+ children, Cherry embraced her son completely. She watched with pride as Ebeng grew comfortable in his identity as a trans man, supporting his transition every step of the way. Life was not easy for the Tria family. Their house needed repairs that they couldn't afford, but Ebeng never complained. Instead, he promised his mother better days ahead. All his friends knew Ebeng worked hardest so he could help his mom out of hardship and buy her a new car one day. And Ebeng worked tirelessly toward those dreams. Though he hadn't completed his formal education, he took whatever honest work he could find. Dishwasher, waiter, restaurant staff. Every payday, he faithfully brought money home to his mother. His generosity extended beyond his immediate family. Ebeng never missed his siblings' birthdays, always finding ways to celebrate despite limited resources. He lived with the conviction that through hard work and determination, he would eventually lift his family from poverty. Ebeng Mayor was just beginning to shine in the TikTok world. With the kind of raw magnetic energy that can't be faked, Ebeng's TikTok videos hit differently. No fancy lighting, no expensive backdrops, no choreographer or team of editors, just Ebeng in whatever space he could find, moving with the kind of joy that pulls you in and makes you forget your own problems for 15 seconds. His setup was nothing special, just a phone balanced precariously on old washing machines in his family's modest home, or a chair in the garden. But that's what made people connect. In a world of perfectly polished content, Ebeng's videos felt real, like catching a glimpse of someone's actual life rather than their carefully curated highlight reel. And people noticed. His follower count climbed to 70,000. His videos racked up more than 500,000 likes. And for a kid from a neighborhood where dreams often go to die, these weren't just numbers on a screen, they were possibilities. Maybe even tickets out of poverty. And as a trans man and a proud member of the LGBTQ+ community, TikTok gave Ebeng something even more precious than potential income. It gave him space, room to breathe, a platform where his identity wasn't the first thing people judged. Online, he could just be Ebeng, talented, funny, creative, without the daily weight of sideways glances and whispered comments that followed him in real life. For marginalized people everywhere, social media can be a lifeline like this, a place where you're celebrated for your gifts rather than questioned about your identity. Ebeng found that sweet spot where his authenticity became his superpower. Those videos still exist now, frozen moments of a future that never got to happen. When you watch them today knowing what came after, they transform from simple dance clips into something completely heartbreaking. Digital footprints of someone who should still be here, still creating, still climbing toward the dreams that died with him in that empty parking lot. In Ebeng's neighborhood, one person shadowed his life from the beginning: Xander Dugong de la Cruz. They played together as small boys. Growing up, running between each other's houses, shared secrets and dreams, Dugong lived just across the street, close enough that the mothers could call them home for dinner from their front steps. Growing up as a trans man wasn't easy in their community, but Ebeng found acceptance among his male friends. These boys who knew him before and during his transition formed the bedrock of his support system. They were the ones who saw him as he truly was. Dugong wasn't just any friend. He was the one Ebeng turned to when life crashed down. The one he trusted with his deepest vulnerabilities. The one who knew all his secrets. The one who would betray him in the most unthinkable way. May 17th, 2021 began as an ordinary evening. Ebeng needed just 20 pesos, pocket change to most people. So he asked his mom if he could borrow the money. When his mother asked why, Ebeng's answer was casual. Just heading out to see my friends. Be back soon, okay? Yes, mom. Everyday words, the kind exchanged in millions of homes every day without a second thought. Cherry couldn't have known that these would be the last sounds of her son's voice that she'd ever hear. When darkness fell and Ebeng hadn't returned, Sherry didn't panic. Young adults stay out, they crash at friends' places, they forget to call, but Ebeng wasn't like that. One day stretched into two, and something was wrong. Ebeng always kept in touch, a quick text, a call, something to let his mother know that he was safe. His silence screamed louder than any cry for help could have. Sherry's fingers trembled as she called his friends, checked social media, messaged everyone who might have seen him. Nothing. His digital presence had gone as silent as his physical one. By the third day, dread had become a physical weight, crushing Cherry's chest. She couldn't eat, she couldn't sleep, she just kept checking her phone, praying for a message that never came. Then, news broke about an unidentified body in Quezon City, a body with a tattoo reading Isheng. The nightmare had only just begun. The truth crawled into daylight like something poisonous from a dark hole. When Cherry cried for her missing child, a man walked into the police station, said he had information about the body with the Isheng tattoo, said he knew who was last seen with the victim. That man was Xander Dugong de la Cruz, Ebeng's childhood friend. Dugong's story began as a carefully constructed lie. He played the concerned friend, telling the police he'd seen Ebeng with two men, Joel Nanoy and Richard Tiago, the night he vanished. He spoke their names coolly, like he was just helping out, just doing the right thing. But his body betrayed with what his mouth concealed. His hands trembled, sweat beaded his forehead. His eyes darted around the room like trapped things seeking escape. Police Corporal Jerome Mendez noticed immediately 20 years on the force teaches you to smell fear. Then Ebeng's father, Ramel, walked into the station. The effect on Dugong was electric. The blood drained from his face, his practiced composure cracked, and then shattered. You could almost see the moment his courage failed him, standing there, facing the father of the boy he grew up with, the father of the boy he helped to murder. Under questioning with Ebeng's father watching, Dugong's carefully constructed narrative fell apart, and that truth was a horror story. May 17th hadn't started as a night planned for murder. Ebeng was hurting. Relationship problems with his girlfriend had left him raw and vulnerable. He was living with her, but their last fight had been so bad he was afraid this was the end. He needed a friend, someone to talk to, someone to help numb the pain. He called Dugong. They met at a bar in Litex, Quezon City, and ordered a few drinks. Their friend Crystal joined, but she would leave early. They talked about Ebeng's relationship troubles, but with each beer, Ebeng's guard lowered further. He poured his heart out to the one person he thought that he could trust. By 2:30 a.m., both were intoxicated. Ebeng could barely walk straight. That's when Dugong suggested they left the bar and went somewhere to crash. He helped Ebeng into a tricycle, those three-wheeled taxis common in the Philippines, gave the driver an address in Phase 4, Payates. Ebeng didn't even question it. Why would he? This was Dugong, his friend since childhood. The tricycle stopped in a dimly lit area. Two men emerged from the shadows. Joel Nanoy Loya and Richard Tiago Araza weren't there by accident. This had been the plan all day long. Before Ebeng could register what was happening, Nanoy's fist slammed into his stomach with brutal force. The air rushed from his lungs, and his knees buckled. Consciousness fled. As Ebeng crumpled to the ground, Nanoy pulled out a gun, pointed it at Dugong's head. "Pick him up," Nanoy commanded. Was there a gun? Did Dugong need to be threatened to participate, or was this just another lie to minimize his role? Only the three perpetrators know for certain. What's undeniable is what happened next. They dragged Ebeng's unconscious body to a vacant lot nearby, a field of tall grass where no one would witness what came next, where no one would hear if Ebeng woke up screaming. The details of what followed are almost too horrific to recount, but to understand the depth of the betrayal, we must face the ugly truth. All three men, yes, including Dugong, took turns essaying his unconscious body. The same person who hours earlier had comforted Ebeng, listened to his problems, now violated him in the most intimate, degrading way possible. During the assault, Nanoy ordered Dugong to find a rock. A big one, heavy enough to crush a human skull. "Hit him," Nanoy commanded, gesturing to Ebeng's face. Dugong hesitated. This was Ebeng, the friend who trusted him enough to share his deepest pain just hours earlier. "Hit him or you're next," Nanoy threatened. Dugong raised the rock and brought it down on Ebeng's face. Once, twice, blood splattered on his hands, his clothes. Ebeng's familiar features began to disappear under a mask of red. But Ebeng was strong. His body fought to live, even as his mind remained unconscious. Nanoy saw him still breathing. "Gimme that," he snarled, snatching the rock from Dugong's hands. What followed was pure savagery. Nanoy smashed the rock into Ebeng's face again and again and again, the wet cracking sounds echoing in the empty field. Bones splintered, flesh tore. That face that had smiled for thousands of TikTok followers became an unrecognizable pulp. Only when Ebeng stopped breathing did Nanoy stop. But even then, his rage wasn't satisfied. He picked up a wooden branch from the ground, about 10 centimeters long. In a final act of unspeakable cruelty, he forced it into Ebeng's genitals. The three men then picked through Ebeng's pockets like vultures. They took his cell phone, ripped a gold necklace from his neck, and slid a bracelet off of his wrist. Then they left him there, naked, brutalized, alone. The boy who had dreamed of buying his mother a car. The son who had faithfully brought home grocery money from every paycheck. The friend who never missed a birthday. The TikTok creator whose infectious joy had touched thousands. Left to rot in an empty field by someone he had called friend.
Arestado na ang tatlong suspect sa Asa at pagbatay sa isang transgender sa Quezon City. Isa po sa kanila, best friend pa ng biktima.
The investigation moved fast after Dugong's confession. Police arrested Joel Nanoy and Richard Tiago, and they seized Ebeng's cell phone, which was still with them. They also seized an improvised firearm from Nanoy. It turns out both Nanoy and Tiago had previous convictions for drugs. They were on probation. All three men were charged with homicide, and robbery. Nanoy faced an additional charge of illegal possession of firearms. In a justice system often criticized for delay, Ebeng's case moved with remarkable speed. Just 4 months later, on September 21, 2021, Judge Ferdinand Bailon of Regional Trial Court Branch 77 of Quezon City delivered the verdict. All three men were found guilty beyond reasonable doubt of SA with homicide. They received sentences between 10 and 22 years in prison. Joel and Richard were also convicted of theft with sentences of 4 to 6 years, while Joel received another conviction for illegal possessions of firearms. The verdict couldn't bring Ebeng back, but it sent shockwaves through the Philippines. His murder was a stark reminder of what it means to be LGBTQ+ in a world that still harbors deep hatred. Social media exploded with rage. Hashtags demanding justice for Ebeng trended for weeks. 10 to 22 years sounded like nothing when you considered what Ebeng went through. People demanded better laws and much, much tougher punishments for hate crimes like this. How many more trans men would be found broken in empty lots? How many more LGBTQ+ Filipinos would be betrayed by those they trusted? In 2021, when the world claimed progress on human rights, how could such medieval brutality still happen? The LGBTQ+ community in the Philippines, galvanized by collective grief and fury, transformed Ebeng's tragedy into a movement. They rallied around his case with unprecedented unity, demanding concrete legislative change. Their primary focus? Pushing lawmakers to finally pass the long-delayed Sexual Orientation, Gender Identity, and Expression Equality Bill to provide legal protection against the kind of discrimination and violence that stole Ebeng's future. For Cherry Tria, the quick justice brought some closure, but nothing would fill the void left by her child's death.
Matagal ko na ho silang pinatawad, pero yung sakit na siguro hindi ko talaga makakalimutan, pero pagdusahan nila yan.
Her forgiveness came not from a place of peace, but from a mother's need to continue living despite unbearable loss. The brutality of how she lost her child would haunt her forever.
Hindi ako makasigaw. Ang sakit-sakit ho ng dibdib ko. Buti lang, hindi ko talaga alam kung anong gagawin ko.
Most disturbing to Cherry was that the architect of this horror was someone Ebeng had trusted completely. Imagine what this does to your trust in others. Cherry will never trust again. Why did they do it? Even now, the reasons feel hollow, incomplete. Police reports point to robbery, the killer stole his phone, necklace, and bracelet, but theft doesn't explain such hatred and overkill. When caught, the killers hid behind the oldest excuse: drugs. We just weren't ourselves. As if chemicals made them beat their friend's face until his own mother couldn't recognize him. As if substances they chose to take, forced them to violate him with a tree branch. No drug on earth creates that level of cruelty. Those actions came from somewhere deeper, darker, something already inside of them. The drug excuse rings even more hollow considering their calculated actions. The planning, the ambush, the careful disposal of evidence, the lies afterward. These weren't mindless addicts caught in a drug-fueled frenzy. These were predators using substances as shields against responsibility. Here's the brutal truth no one wants to face. There is no why that would ever make sense of what happened to Ebeng. No motive that could justify such savagery against another human being, against a friend. Sure, prison sentences were given and case files were closed, but justice feels like the wrong word when a 21-year-old's potential has been permanently extinguished. Ebeng's TikTok dreams died in that field. The car he wanted to buy his mom, the house repairs he promised, the birthdays he'll never celebrate, the laughter he'll never share, the life he fought so hard to create as his authentic self, all erased in a single night of betrayal. Ebeng's case forces us to confront uncomfortable realities about being LGBTQ+, especially a trans man in a society where simply existing as yourself can put you at risk. Every day, people like Ebeng navigate a world where trusted friends can become executioners, where vulnerability can be weaponized against you, where your identity can be treated as justification for violence. Remember Ebeng not as a statistic or cautionary tale. His story deserves more than our fleeting outrage. It demands lasting change. It compels us to create a world where no one fears death for simply being themselves, where trust isn't a potential death sentence, where everyone's life holds equal, precious value. Ebeng Mayor dreamed of a better future for his family. Let us dream of a better world for people like him, and then let us build it. That's the only justice that matters now. What happens when your childhood friend becomes your murderer? Is any law strong enough to prevent such a betrayal? Would you recognize the warning signs before it's too late? Leave your thoughts in a comment. If this shook you to your core, don't scroll away. Subscribe for more stories that demand attention. Like to help others see this tragedy. Comment with your thoughts on how we can stop this from happening again, because next time it could be someone you know. Stay vigilant and see you soon.